I'd like to welcome you to Battles of Faith. My name is David Shin, and I'm here with Steve Wohlberg, who's the speaker director of White Horse Media, and we've been delving into the supernatural from a biblical perspective. And the title of this series is Magic, Ghosts, and the Bible. Pottermania is the topic of our study today, and it's a subject that is loved and hated. But before we get into that, why don't we set the stage a little bit for our viewing audience that has just joined us at this time about what we've been talking about up to this point.
Sure, David. We're going to be discussing Pottermania and the Potter controversy. It's no secret that the Harry Potter books have been read and are loved around the world. We're going to put up just quickly on the screen a cover of a fairly recent issue of Time magazine, and these articles have been duplicated around the world. They've been covered on major news networks all over planet Earth. That particular issue, you see a picture of all these young people with Harry Potter type glasses. The feature story says, "Why Harry Potter Rules," and inside that issue there's a quotation that says, "J.K. Rowling has mesmerized an entire generation of kids with her story chronicling the adventures of a boy wizard named Harry Potter, who goes to a school called Hogwarts, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and develops his magical abilities." There's actually 7 books in the entire series. These are novels. These are fantasy books that start out with a book called Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone and go all the way through to the final book, the grand conclusion, called Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. These books have sold approximately 300 million copies around the world. Warner Brothers has committed, this is the legendary filmmaker, to making every Harry Potter book into a feature-length, high-budget film. And these, not only the books, but the movies are being watched around the world by kids young and old, black and white, brown, yellow, red, every skin color, every language practically. I mean, Harry Potter is known. He's as known as any boy has ever been. As I mentioned, the last book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, released July 21, 2007. The photograph on the screen is actually a pre-press copy of the final book before the cover was designed. But it's just amazing, that book. Well, the first book that came out, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, the publisher Scholastic printed approximately 250,000 books for the first print run. And then as you go on, each book has gotten bigger and they printed more. And the last book, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, they printed a record 12 million copies, which is, there's never been anything like it in publishing history. For a hardcover book, it's just it's number one. No other hardcover book in history has ever printed 12 million copies for the first print run. So, like I said, kids around the world are reading Harry Potter, and there is a tremendous controversy going on about whether these books are just fun, just fantasy. There's just, nothing to worry about. Christians that are concerned, people say, hey, lighten up, just lighten up and shut up. There's nothing wrong with Harry Potter, it's just a story. And then there are other people, a lot of people actually, that are very concerned that these books are desensitizing this generation, especially young people, to the dangers of the occult and are creating an interest in real witchcraft. And so that's the controversy. Is Harry Potter leading toward magic, or is it just a fun story? Is there a menace behind the magic? That's the issue.
Now, I've read a little bit about J.K. Rowling, and it's a classic story of rags to riches. She was on welfare, living in England, single parent, and she was on the subway one day, and it says in her own account that the figure of Harry Potter just walked into her mind.
Strolled right into her head.
And rags to riches. She's probably arguably one of the richest women in our world because of this book.
She's comparable to Oprah. She's richer than the Queen of England. I mean, you're right, rags to riches. She actually submitted her manuscript to a number of publishers, and they rejected it. And finally, Scholastic got a hold of it, and it just took off from there. And there are many people that wonder whether there's some kind of a supernatural force that is behind the incredible mega popularity of this series. I'd like to read just a number of quick quotes here before we get farther in concerning the influence of stories. Here's a man named Howard Pyle. He's a writer and illustrator, and he made a classic comment. He said, "The stories of childhood leave an indelible impression, and their author always has a niche in the temple of memory." That childhood stories have an influence. They affect people's lives. Here's another quote from Ian Kirk, another classic quote. He said, it has not been the devil's policy to keep the masses of mankind in ignorance, but finding that they will read, he is doing all in his power to poison their books. Quite a statement. Books definitely do have an influence on people's lives. And so what about Harry Potter? This is our time to really deal with this controversial subject. One of the biggest issues is Harry Potter contributing to the craze, the explosive growth of real witchcraft in our world? And I think it's significant, David, that people that are watching this, that you keep in mind that we not only have the Potter track, the fantasy stories, story about a boy wizard, along with all the other television programs like Sabrina and the Charmed series that are fiction, but at the same time, right on the other track, we have the growth of real witchcraft in our world, which we've been discussing here on Battles of Faith for the last so many programs. And so we've got two things going on. We've got fantasy about witchcraft growing, and then we've got real witchcraft growing at the same time. And the question is, are they connected? Mm-hmm. Is one feeding the other? Let me share with you a very interesting document. I'm not going to go into all the details where I got this document, but this is actually a press release. It was released on the PR web, and it was put out by the president of a witchcraft school, a real witchcraft school that teaches young people, young and old, how to practice the craft. And the title of this press release is called Witchcraft and Wicca, the Heart of the Harry Potter Controversy. Now, keep in mind, this is coming from people that are practicing real witchcraft. This is their perspective. It says here that Harry Potter has become a record-breaking phenomenon and is the 21st century's opening fairy tale. Within the pages of J.K. Rowling's books, she created a world of wizards and witches, and she unwittingly exposed the fastest growing religion in America to hundreds of millions of people. This faith is called Wicca, and its members are witches, and it is at the core of the controversy that Hogwarts School has created. Here's a little bit more. In 1997, a young mother wrote a book called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, and it was published. Little did she know, nor could she have imagined how much the world needed Harry Potter and his wonderful story. J.K. Rowling created a phenomena that brought magic to the forefront of human thought and unwittingly reopened a new round of an ancient battle between witchcraft and Christianity. And then this press release says that Harry Potter has rekindled interests in beliefs that were already growing in the United Kingdom and the United States for more than 50 years, and that belief is called Wicca. So this is, we could say, from the horse's mouth. This is right from the president of a school that teaches real witchcraft to young people, and this book says, or this press release says, that Harry Potter has created an interest in witchcraft among young people.
So you're saying that now obviously, in the press and in the media, Harry Potter has been a phenomena, and for a parent that's out there, the natural thinking, I would assume, and for children like, this is just innocuous family entertainment. This is things that is just fantasy, like Disney and so forth. And so you're showing here that, according to the witches themselves, they're saying that Harry Potter is actually advertising, or their medium for getting the message out about Wicca. Is that what they're saying right here?
That's what this person is saying, and this person is not the only one. There are other people in the pagan community, other people in the witchcraft community that are saying the same thing. So I'm not the only one. I've been on a lot of radio shows discussing this topic, and I know it's extremely controversial. And I'm sure that there are probably people out there watching this right now that have read the Harry Potter books and that love Harry Potter. And if you are, I don't want you to feel like I'm condemning you. I just hope that you'll have an open mind to hear me out, and we've got a lot to discuss, and we'll just take a look at some more facts. First of all, one of the main arguments in favor of Harry Potter is that it's all just a story, it's just fantasy, and it's not connected to the real world of the occult. I beg to differ with that. J.K. Rowling herself has publicly admitted that she's done a vast amount of research, and that 30% of what's in those books is actually the result of real research that she has done in the occult world. The basic storyline of Harry Potter is that there's a battle between an evil wizard and his followers and the good wizards, especially Harry Potter. good and bad wizards. That philosophy that you can be a good wizard is real witchcraft philosophy. That is the philosophy of Wicca. The philosophy that you can practice white magic, which is what Harry Potter's all about. He practices the good kind of magic against the evil wizard. That is also real witchcraft philosophy. It's promoted in the book Teen Witch that we talked about on a previous program, and many other books. The philosophy that's in Teen Witch is in Harry Potter. One of the components of the Harry Potter series is that Harry, when he goes to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, he takes all kinds of classes. He takes a class on divination, on potions, history of magic, and he also takes a class called Defense Against the Dark Arts. And he learns that he can use certain spells to protect himself from the evil wizards that are out to kill him. That philosophy is also in the book Teen Witch, which is a real witchcraft book promoting witchcraft to teenagers. The lady that wrote that book, that's what she says, that you can protect yourself by casting good spells against evil. And so you can go point by point and demonstrate that in spite of the fantasy, in spite of the fiction, in spite of all the goofy elements that are within Harry Potter, there are real components that are connected to real witchcraft. And that, going back to this press release that I referred to, it comes right out here, and it says that Harry Potter has many components that are similar to Wicca. So the people that are into witchcraft, many of them see it. Many of them see it. As I mentioned, I've been on a lot of radio shows. I've been interviewed on a lot of programs, both TV and radio, to discuss this. And let me just share some very interesting information. One time I was on a show in Seattle called Live from Seattle. It was a radio program. They were supposed to keep me on for about 45 minutes, and because the phones just went off the hook, I was on for an hour and a half. And during that show, a woman named Melissa, I still remember to this day, she called in to the show and spoke to me and to the host. And she said, let me tell you my story. She said, I'm a mother. I have a Christian home. My daughter, 14-year-old daughter, she went out and read the first Harry Potter book, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. And after going out and reading that book, she went right back to the bookstore and she began buying real witchcraft books. And then she said that her daughter began having all kinds of spiritual problems. And her daughter came to her mother, and Melissa's telling the story. She said, my daughter came to me and she said, Mom, I'm scared. She said, I feel like the Holy Spirit has left me. What's happening to me? And her mom said, well, what's going on in your life? And then that's when she divulged that she had been reading Harry Potter, and then she finally got rid of those books because of that. So there's one example, and I'll tell you a few more in a minute.
So you're saying that up to 30% of J.K. Rowling's material is laced with real life witchcraft situations, philosophies, and so forth, and you've actually documented some or met or talked with certain individuals that have evidence of going from Harry Potter into witchcraft.
Yes, I have a friend of mine who is a good friend of mine, and he has a daughter that works at a Barnes & Noble in Nashville, Tennessee. And this man told me that his daughter said, she's standing at the cash register, she's selling the books, ringing up the orders. And she said that this daughter said that whenever a Harry Potter book comes out, and the young and the old, they just line up, to get the book. She said that many of them not only grab the Potter book, but they also grab real witchcraft books right there on the shelf, and that they bring them both to the cash register and they buy them both. There's another experience that I learned about. It was shared with me from a friend that lives in Paso Robles, California, where I used to live. She goes to Paso Robles High School. She's a 16-year-old girl, and she forwarded to me a dialogue between her and a young man in an internet chat room where they were just discussing things. And this girl's on fire for the Lord, and she's witnessing wherever she goes. And so she was dialoguing with this man, and this young man, and she forwarded to me the dialogue. And she asked this young man about the star that he said was on his neck. He wore a pentacle. And he explained it. He said, it's a 5-pointed star with a circle around it. It's called a pentacle. Most Wiccans wear a necklace with one on it. And she said, oh, you are a Wiccan? And he responded and said, yes, I am. And then she said, did Harry Potter spark your interest in witchcraft? And he said, and you can see the answer right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, yeah, it did. Now, let me clarify that I'm not saying that every boy or girl that reads a Harry Potter book is going to rush out and join a coven and become a solitaire or a witch. Obviously, that's not true. But for anyone that has their eyes open, it is a fact and I can tell story after story after story, this is just a few stories, that many young people have become interested in witchcraft because of Harry Potter. Even though it's full of fiction, even though it's full of fantasy, and there's all kinds of things in there that are not real, there are things that are real. There's real places mentioned. London's mentioned. There's a subway station in London that is mentioned. There's countries, America, Africa, Egypt. There are places. There are people like Nicholas Flamel. There's a lot of real witchcraft things that are in there. J.K. Rowling has a master's degree in mythology from the University of Exeter, and she again has publicly admitted that 30% of what's in those books is the result of her research into real witchcraft. So there's a lot in there, and as I mentioned, when you look at the Harry Potter philosophy and the storyline, you've got good wizards, you've got them practicing white magic, you've got Harry Potter going to school and learning how to protect himself from evil by casting spells. That is the philosophy of real Wicca today. And if people don't see it, they just don't know what's happening. And it's my contention, my conviction, without a question, that Harry Potter is contributing to the Wiccan craze, the Wiccan interest among young people. I have another friend of mine that took a camera and went to one of the Harry Potter movies. And he interviewed people, he and his wife interviewed them as they were coming out of the film. And there was a mom that came out with her 2 kids. And they were asking them questions, how'd you like the movie? And the mother said, oh, it was great, it was fun. And the kids said, yeah, it was really cool. And then she started asking the kids whether they could possibly become interested in casting real spells. And the girl, the daughter, looked at the interviewer, this woman, and was nodding her head. And then her mother looked at the daughter and said, don't you dare. This is just a story. And the girl just kind of clamped up and just looked back at the interviewer and didn't say anything. But, there's just a simple example right there. And there's a lot of examples that I can mention.
I have a few statistics here that I picked up. It says the 6 books to date have collectively sold more than 300 million copies and have been translated into more than 63 languages. This is a phenomenon that is sweeping across our world.
That's right.
And it illustrates, like you've said, the power of the medium of story, and that is becoming the agency through which it's connecting with witchcraft. And the parents are saying, hey, this is just innocuous entertainment, but you've seen that it can lead to something deeper.
That's right. And people say, David, it's just fiction. But the fact is that fiction is a powerful communicator of ideas that do influence people's lives. Here's a little quotation about fiction, and it says here, this is from a British novelist named Virginia Woolf. She said, fiction is like a spider's web. It is still attached to life at all 4 corners. It's very interesting, David, and I'd like to share a Bible text at this point from Matthew chapter 13, verse 34. Matthew 13, verse 34. And this is talking about the primary method that Jesus Christ used when he taught. Verse 34, the Bible says that all these things spoke Jesus to the multitude in parables. And without a parable spoke he not unto them, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets, saying, I will open my mouth in parables, and I will utter things which have been kept secret from the foundation of the world. Jesus Christ, when he was teaching, primarily used stories. Parables are stories. And the reason why he did that was because Jesus knew, he was the master teacher, and he knew that stories communicate ideas, and that they're a very powerful way of teaching people things. And that's what Harry Potter is. It's a story. And parents that say that just because it's a story, we don't need to be concerned about it, that is just modern ignorance. Honestly, it is. Stories are powerful. Jesus used stories. Here's something else to consider. I was holding a meeting on this somewhere in northern Washington, and a woman came up to me and she drew my attention to something in the Bible that I hadn't previously thought of. She said, I've been thinking about the name Harry Potter. Potter. And she says, what is a potter anyway? And I thought about that, and I thought, a potter is someone that molds clay. And then she reminded me of a Bible text. There are a number of texts. There's one in Jeremiah. There's one in the book of Isaiah, chapter 64, verse 8, where God said, I am the potter, and you are the clay. And so God uses the term potter to illustrate that he wants to mold his people. And so here you have a storyline of a boy wizard who practices magic, who's cool, and who mixes potions and uses white magic, and that kids all around this world are just fascinated by, mesmerized by, absorbed by. And what's happening is that this generation is slowly and subtly being molded. They're being molded not just by Harry Potter, but by a lot of other TV programs that are making witchcraft out to be cool and fun and exciting for kids. And is it any wonder that we're seeing at the same time that Hollywood is putting out all these stories about witchcraft, that we're seeing real witchcraft on the rise all around us? I mean, there's a connection. 1 + 1 still equals 2.
So you're saying that the Harry Potter phenomena is contributing to the growth of Wiccan worldwide. And let's go to this concept of story. Jesus used stories. Now, let's say that there's a parent out there that has Harry Potter in their house. What would be your advice to that parent that has some books laying around their house with Harry Potter? Is it okay to keep, or is it okay to read sometimes, or what would be your recommendation to that individual?
Yeah, I would say don't let your kids read them at all.
That much.
Obviously, when if people get older, they make their own choices. But I have a little boy named Seth. He's 2 years old, and when he gets to be 5, 6, 7, 8, I'm not going to be buying him the Harry Potter books. Now, when he gets to be older than that, if he chooses to read them, that's up to him.
Okay.
But when a child is young enough to be under the influence of their parents, I don't want my child reading books that make witchcraft out to be fun, that plant seeds. I've mentioned this previously, that I've recently gotten into gardening. And one thing you do in gardening is you prepare the soil, and then you plant seeds. You plant seeds. You put the compost in, you rototill it up, and then you put those seeds in. Harry Potter is preparing the soil, and it's planting seeds. And Wicca is reaping the harvest. And the president of a witchcraft school acknowledged that that is exactly what's happening. Now, let me just kind of shift gears a little bit. Apart from the whole witchcraft issue, when you look at the character of Harry Potter himself, as portrayed in the movies and as portrayed in the books, Harry Potter he's not really a role model for kids, at least for Christian kids, at least for kids that really want to follow this book. If you read the Potter books or look at the movies, Harry Potter as a character, he lies. He lies a lot. He lies many, many times for supposedly good reasons. He curses. He swears. He has temper tantrums. He drinks fire whiskey sometimes. He's an underage drinker. He does a lot of things. He breaks rules over and over and over again at the school. There's one particular scene in one of the Potter books where his best friend, Ron Weasley, is talking to his mother. And this is what he says, quote, he says, "Mom, shut up." And that's the British way of saying mom. He says, "Mom, shut up," Ron yelled. And he's not corrected. There's nothing that's apparently wrong with this. And so here you've got a series of books where Harry's best friend is telling his mother to shut up. Now, is that parents? Is that something is that a seed you want planted in the minds of your kids? Do you want them reading this kind of material? I don't. My Bible says, honor your father and mother. My Bible says, he who curses his father and mother, there's consequences to that. Won't quote the whole verse, but there's a lot in there, and it talks about the importance of children having respect for their kids. In 2 Timothy chapter 3, it talks about one of the signs of the end is that kids will be disobedient to their parents, disrespectful to their parents. And I don't want my little boy reading a book where one of the key characters tells his mother to shut up.
So outside of the Wiccan connection to Harry Potter, you're saying that there's other issues with Potter morals that's involved, that he lies, he curses, he gets angry, he breaks rules. Now, I'm thinking of the parent out there.
And these things are not presented as wrong either in the books. A lot
Positively.
of times. That's right. They're just something he does. And they're not corrected.
Now, what about the parent out there that's saying, hey, if I can't have them read Harry Potter, which is all over, and the kids want to read this type of material, what do I feed my kids as far as a mental diet? What are some resources that we can point them to? We want to not only say that this is not something that we support, but at the same time we want to replace it with something good.
Yes, David, thank you for bringing me back to that. You did ask that question. Our ministry, White Horse Media, has on our website a lot of resources for young people. whitehorsemedia.com. One of the books that I strongly recommend to parents to replace Harry Potter is the book called Pilgrim's Progress. which is a classic work written by John Bunyan. It's an allegory, it's a story, but it has affected people's lives for 300 years. It teaches morality, it teaches purity, it teaches obedience to God, it teaches humility, it teaches following the Bible. And those lessons, humility, purity, obedience, faith in God, you won't find those lessons one time in any Harry Potter book. They're just not there. And so we encourage something better. We encourage reading the Bible, obviously the most important book. We do have a number of other resources for young people. Pilgrim's Progress, I mentioned, is a wonderful book. It's a powerful book. And we encourage people to look, instead of to a boy wizard that's cool and practices magic, we encourage people to look ultimately to one particular person, the person above all persons, and that is Jesus Christ. Here it says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 2, that we are to be looking unto Jesus, looking unto Jesus. In the Harry Potter storyline, Harry has an encounter when he's a little baby with the evil Lord Voldemort, and a curse falls upon him which bounces back on the evil wizard, and it leaves a lightning-shaped scar on his head. And so when people watch these movies, they'll see Daniel Radcliffe, who is the boy that plays Harry Potter, who, by the way, starred in a British play without any clothes on in a certain scene. So he's certainly not a role model. But anyway, he has this lightning bolt on his head. He has a scar. And all these kids around the world are looking to a boy wizard who has a scar. And in my mind, when I think of that, I think of Jesus Christ. And I think, why have kids focus on a wizard that has a scar when they could be looking at a real man, at the real Jesus who has real scars in his hands and in his feet? He had the crown of thorns placed upon his head, and he did this because he loves us. Harry is fantasy. He doesn't exist. Jesus Christ is real. He loves boys and girls. He wants them to be happy. He wants them to fill their mind, as Philippians 4:8 says, with things that are true, that are lovely, that are honest, that are pure. The Bible says, think on these things. Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 11 says that witchcraft is an abomination. And certainly there's a subtle devil behind the scenes that is leading kids to look at witchcraft, look at their hero, and to be molded in a direction that is not good. My advice is look to Jesus. Parents, put things that are pure and good before your kids and pray, and God will bless you as you do that.
We're about out of time. Steve, thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been enlightening. We've gone through this series on the supernatural and magic, ghosts in the Bible, and we've talked today specifically about Potter mania and how Harry Potter is linked. 30% of her J.K. Rowling's books is linked with witchcraft. We've also talked about the issue with morals throughout the Harry Potter series, and finally we've talked about the power of a story in dealing with this. We'd like to thank you so much for joining us today for Battles of Faith, and it's our prayer that you'll learn to live by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God.